Hello, this is Colonel Steve Akeley of the ABV Network, and you're watching one of our original videos that we've created for you. We're doing this each and every day. If you want to make sure that you never miss out on this original content, please hit the subscribe button down below. And also, if you'd like this video, it helps new people find our content, which is pretty important to us. And now, on to today's video.
I'm sure Campbell had the right governor, the flowery introduction. So thank you. Thank you for my nomination. Thank you to the board for your support of that nomination. I'd love to tell you that Trey and I are part of a blue-blooded Bourbon family going back generations, but I can't. I grew up in the south end of Louisville on the shadow of Churchill Downs, a couple of short blocks from a suburban area of Louisville called Shively. From about 1935 to 1980, there were probably 50 or 60 distilleries scattered across Kentucky. A great many of them were in Shively. Yellowstone, Seagram's, Early Times, Old Forester, Chet Zoeller were part of that community. Let's fast forward. I practiced law a little bit, got into communications, sold my company, thought I was done. In 1997, Trey came to me and said, "Dad, let's do something." Well, hell, we were in Kentucky, and it seemed like a reasonable thing to do was bourbon. Well, as has been referenced before, in 1997, let me give you a picture of the bourbon industry in Kentucky. We were down to 8 distilleries, 2 of which only produced one brand. A third distillery wouldn't even sell their product in the United States. That meant all the other bourbon that was produced came from 5 distilleries. Well, if you went to your local liquor store, there might be a section 5 foot wide with 5 or 6 shelves. That was all the bourbon that was available in Kentucky. If you left Kentucky, people may have heard of it, but they'd never tried it. It had been in a 30-year downward spiral. It was a dead industry. So when we decided to get in the bourbon industry, you can see what astute businessmen we were. In preparation for today's talk, I did a Ben Franklin. You know, that's where you draw the line down the middle of the page and you do the pros and cons. Well, on the con side, we're about to enter a dead industry. We had little or no money. We had absolutely no knowledge of the industry. We didn't have a distillery and we didn't have any bourbon. On the pro side, we did have enthusiasm. We also had some good fortune. We immediately sit down at our kitchen table with our wives, design the bottle, which is from a fragrance bottle, perfume bottle. We needed a name. We truly wanted to help create a renaissance in the bourbon business. So what better example for a Renaissance man than Thomas Jefferson? So that's where the name came from. We didn't have any money to advertise our product, so it was a name we were pretty sure people would remember. Well, the next thing we needed was bourbon. So we started around the state, going to those distilleries that existed, and what we found was the warehouses were loaded with aging whiskey. Wonderful bourbon that was not being marketed. Most whiskey on the market was 4, 6, 8 year old, but none of the big fellas was really marketing old whiskey. So Trey and I decided that would be our niche. we picked a 15-year-old bourbon, which we both thought was wonderful, named it Jefferson, and put a $50 price tag on it when you could buy any bottle of bourbon in Kentucky for $10 to $25. We found the market, not much of a market, but some. My job, I did all the backroom stuff. Because of my legal background, I could do the licensing in each state. I could help with the distribution contracts. And our sales force was Trey. It was the two of us. He would put his 2 or 3 bottles in his briefcase and head out. Wouldn't see him for a week or so, and he'd come back all beat up, but managed to sell a few bottles. We did have some good fortune. As we went around the state sampling bourbon, we came across a misplaced Norwegian by the name of Evan's Coolsveen. Evan was trying to put his wife's family's distillery back together. It was a one-man show. And we met Evan, and he was kind enough to take Trey and I under his wing and provide an environment where we could not only start our business, but grow it and eventually make a success. Without Evan Coolsveen, there would be no Jefferson bourbon. So wherever you are, Evan, thank you. For the first 2 or 3 years, the world headquarters of Jefferson's bourbon was in my basement. We had no employees. Finally, after 2 or 3 years, we weren't able to hire somebody on a part-time basis, and the business started growing. I soon discovered that I was just getting in the way, and for the business really to grow, I needed to fade away and let Trey do his thing. And as he mentioned, probably been over 30 expressions of Jefferson introduced over the last 25 years. Why Trey didn't starve to death in those first couple of years, I have no idea. They were lean years, to be sure. But while I was involved in the day-to-day business, I discovered that there had been thousands of labels of bourbon, hundreds of distilleries that were no longer in existence. And I wondered why. Well, I tried to read everything I could possibly find, and there wasn't much to read. There were only 3 or 4 books on bourbon. But a fellow named Sam Cecil, who had been master distillery down at Baker's, had written a book, and he talked about 50 or 60 different distilleries across the state. So that whetted my appetite, and I immediately started to try to research the subject. I traveled all over the state. I went to, I can't tell you how many courthouses, county libraries, anywhere I could think to go to find records of old distilleries. County histories. Well, a county could have had 20, 25 distilleries, but if a teacher wrote the county history, he probably didn't even mention there had been a distillery in the county. So it was really hard to dig out that information. And I've been doing that the last 25 years. I did come out with my first book, I think it was 2009. I continued to research and have come out. I just came out with my 5th edition. And while it may look like a coffee table book, don't let it fool you. There are over 2,000 distilleries. In the index, just names of distillery, there are over 4,500 names. A distillery and the labels were bought and sold almost yearly. A distillery could have had 7 or 8 different names during its lifetime and existence. So it took a little doing to sort that out. The joke was at my house, my wife would occasionally pass the study, throw a piece of medium to keep me going while I continued to research and write. It's been a pleasure to travel the state of Kentucky to do my research. I was able to run titles when I was going to county courthouses to discover who really owned the distilleries and the history of each one. The bourbon business in Kentucky is a very incestuous business. Even though there were a great many distilleries, many of them were owned by a smaller group of people. Folks who owned 5 or 6 distilleries were not uncommon. Of course, you've heard the name of Beam and Dent and Samuels and Taylor, but do you know the name Schneider? They had a chain of distilleries up and down the Ohio. The Monarchs in Davies County, the Stolls in Fayette County, the Mattingleys from Marion and Jefferson County. There's a rich history of folks that have just disappeared from the radar. Before Prohibition, a full 60% of the federal government's annual budget was paid for by taxes on whiskey. It was a huge business. And for various reasons over the years, it dwindled down to those 8 when Trey and I got in the business. I'm delighted to tell you that at the last count, there were over 70 distilleries in Kentucky. That's growing every year. The last numbers I heard, there were 4.5 million people in Kentucky and 12 million barrels of bourbon. So it sounds like we're on the right track. I thank you. I'm humbled by this honor, and it's all the sweeter by the fact that I'm able to come in with my son. Thank you.